I think that we should hold corporate accountable.
Everyone should have some basic educational knowledge, but
Foundation,
not everybody wants to go and have 5 master's degrees or, get a doctorate.
Like, people already perceive them this way. And they actually are perceived this way. They get the talks, they see the expressions from other parents when their parents is asked, what school your child going?
Academics are not the only way to succeed. So I feel like in school we should be preparing students for life.
What ways do low-income backgrounds affect a student's educational opportunities and outcomes?
That's a great question.
Like, real serious.
This is real.
All right, guys. So what are the points for your Caribbean studies essay?
Well, in this capitalistic society that we live in.
It's real.
I mean,
I think one major way that it's going to affect student success, not only in terms of the school, you can think about like lack of textbooks, teachers, that kind of thing. But then imagine like having to focus on school, but you're hungry or you're not too sure like the safety of your family, or just a lot of other stresses that children usually shouldn't have to burden or shoulder. Or even if you have multiple siblings and you are the older sibling, that you probably have to get your siblings ready for school, get them to school. When you pick them up from school, feed them, because you're single parent or parent working. So you kind of have a lot of extra responsibilities. Kind of be hard to focus on solely academics when you're juggling all that.
Also, being aware of your economic status, that could actually limit you as well, because you know that you're not going to have these opportunities. You would not be able to afford university anyways. You wouldn't be, you're not financially in a place to acquire these things, or maybe study abroad. So that kind of limits you mentally.
But I feel like that's
right there,
because you have people who would be demotivated by that, and they would, so they don't dream big. You kind of dream within this is possibilities, but then you have those who would be in the same exact situation and be like, well, I can't really see where the dollars and stuff is going to come from for that, but I'm going to make this happen for me. Like, I'm a hustle. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like, this is not going to be my life. And so it could be like a motivator or a driver for some, and it could be a cage for others.
So is it the student rather than their status?
I think it's specific to... I think it would depend on the person's temperament, their personality as well, but also their home background. Because you don't know because yes, we talk socioeconomic, but also most times we tend to see that persons in that category also there's another layer to it in terms of what's going on at home, as Mr. Keeley mentioned, because you don't know if there's negative self-talk at home as well. There could be somebody telling you, well, I don't know why you bother. There are some homes like that where it's like, I don't know why you bothering with this school thing, it's not gonna don't waste your time with that, come and learn, something else, come and help us in the shop or things like that, or come and see about your siblings, so I think it depends on the person as well as the background at home, and then also what type of support that they are receiving. Some people might need an extra voice to tell them, hey, you could actually, do this thing. There are some persons who need that external voice besides their own. And some people just have that hunger inside them that's like, forget all the rubbish. I need to do this. I'm going to do it. So it depends. I don't think there's necessarily like a formula to it. Some people just...
But I think it's safe to say that for most, that situation is going to be limiting for most. So I wouldn't say that is the student, but I'm not saying that just because that is what exists for you means that is a fate that you have to accept. For most, though, it will be limiting, but you will have the exceptional few that will rise above.
And I also think sometimes too, there are persons that may start off with that, I'm gonna, I could do better than my situation. But, sometimes, you just feel like life keep beating you up. And it's like one thing after the other, after the other.
That's
so you may
true.
have started off that way, and then after a while, you just kind of give up. You're like, okay, it's not working out. This is what it is.
and I mean, when the environment you're in, like when not saying that it's necessarily a good or a bad thing, but when everybody else around you, nobody else around you is in that,
correct.
in that zone of like pursuing academia or pursuing education, that kind of thing, then it's a lot harder to stand by yourself in that space and be like, I want to do this. It, like you're saying, it takes a lot of internal motivation to do that, as opposed to, people who like accustomed, they have a lot of people in their family who already have degrees and that kind of thing, and it's just like what they're expected. That's the environment, and that usually is the norm with more, how do we say, like upper class, or people who have more resources available to them, that kind of thing. So
yeah, is something common that they are accustomed with, and also they have that support. So people is, from left, right, and center, family members are, make sure you do this, make sure you get your degree, make sure you put your education first. Everybody is talking that on them. So yeah, it's obviously they grow and develop with that mindset already, in comparison to somebody with a low socioeconomic status that doesn't have that advice and motivation.
Or
from
even
others.
simple things like access to other resources, like you'll say, like lessons. Some people, maybe they're not academically inclined or they don't have the best teachers in school. It might be easier for them to say, okay, well, I'll just go and learn whatever in lessons. But persons from a lower socioeconomic background may not have that same luxury to say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to a great school that's so great. I'm not great at work, but I could go to lessons. They don't have that, that luxury. They're not afforded that luxury.
What are some innovative solutions to bridge the educational gap for the poorest students?
That's what it is.
Yeah, what are some innovative solutions to bridge the educational gap for the poorest students?
underprivileged.
Look at now, all that is running in the back of my mind is the poorest of the poor. No. TikTok has struck again.
Right.
I mean,
TikTok green.
in terms of the question, I think that we obviously have to be so grateful for the accessibility of technology now. And it still isn't accessible to everybody, but it is much more accessible, and through the internet and through online, even just on a phone, most people have a phone. You could access like videos on YouTube, you can access all different sorts of like articles, websites, that kind of thing, even like websites with activities and exercises and stuff you could do to practice whatever it is you're learning.
You mean like, like the student
Like
hub?
the student
Free resources online, right?
Yeah, there's so much videos on YouTube. Like I just always say, I wish I had this when I did CSEC. Like I wish I had this.
But I mean, in order to access all those things, you need some sort of internet connection, and a lot of people don't have that.
Right.
Like COVID was a big, because my mom is a guidance counselor, so she works in schools, and COVID just revealed a lot of the gaps that are, because so many people did not have access to a device or a device for them alone, or like stable internet connection. So I think that could probably be somewhere we could start. I don't know if this would be included, but I thought there was going to be free Wi-Fi in the country. In the last manifesto, in the
Oh yes,
Wi-Fi.
we going there. We must come back to the government. No.
But or maybe even if it's not something that they have at home, but access to things like the library. The library has Wi-Fi there. So maybe ways or spaces that would allow students to access whatever resources that they don't have at home. So a library, a nearby library, and maybe ways to get them to and from, or like, like a kind of shuttle.
Honestly, one thing I think, and like it's something I observed like in the States where like high school students and stuff would have student IDs. And I think it would be great in Trinidad if we implement something like that where like they have some kind of drive where across the country, across different businesses and stuff, they allow for student discounts in different things, like even transport or certain like places where they could go, so that students have a little ID card from their school, from the ministry or whatever, and then they're allowed to get like discounts in certain places.
Well, I know.
My ID card from university, I could go on the bus with it. I discounts at Starbucks at different places. a student ID card was power.
Yeah.
I think like when you go
even
movie
with your
talk or
UE.
something, you get a discount when you show them your student
UE
ID.
Yeah. So they should have that for like secondary school students.
I know if you go into a bus in a school uniform, it's free.
Yeah, you
free
get
transport.
free transport.
But I think that we should hold corporate accountable. Not accountable, but inspire them. So different businesses are always looking for ways to look good.
Correct, that's
right?
true,
So your little social good projects. So
PR.
it's marketing. They're not doing it. I mean, partly
mean,
out of the
again,
goodness of their
partly,
heart, but
but
partly out of how it looks.
It's
right?
gonna make you look good.
So I feel like if we challenge different or various companies to adopt a school or to adopt tech lounge.
Correct.
That's like tech lounge because they want different resources available and stuff, different devices or something that
Sponsor
students could go.
something.
They can't take it home or whatever, but
Yeah.
you could come to a space, you'll have the internet. If you have to do your research, if you different things that you would not have a variety to have access to. So if you challenge, different, you could have I don't want to say the name of any major businesses in the country, but you have the XYZ lounge in the school, and students is something that students can go. But I mean, it has to be monitored, well taken care of, that kind of thing.
To say that.
But I think in the long run, it could be beneficial.
I think there's a lot of people who came from low economic backgrounds and have made it to the top. So people like that, those public persons could go to schools maybe in the region that they came from, and go to those schools and just say, be that person. Because remember previously we was talking about that people from low economic backgrounds, they don't have people telling them like, your education first, get your degree, make sure you get all ones or whatever. But these public persons that made it to the top from that place, they could go to those schools and be that support for them and encourage them and say, I was here too and it's fine.
But I think, I think they have this, I think I saw it on social media, it's like the 40 under 40 and they're doing like visiting different schools and stuff and engaging with the youth. And I think I kind of I'm not sure, was it that today, boy? I mentioned it at some point, the importance of driving that academics are not the only way to succeed. So I feel like in school we should be preparing students for life. And like I wouldn't lie, like nail techs and stuff be building house cash.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Hairdressers.
Hairdressers, when you have your trade, your own hustle, and especially if you could work from home or a little in your porch or whatever the case may be, you start small and you scale up and you master your craft and that kind of thing. So I feel like even in schools having opportunities, I remember in my school we used to, for one term we used to call it projects, right? Where you would either you could do dance, you could do sewing, you could do defensive driving, you could do, so you create opportunities. So one could be like a lash tech, come and do a little demo. Is that something you're interested in? Nails, makeup, hair, then for the guys, plumbing, mechanic,
Because education is not one size fits all, and I think that's some of the issues that we're having in the education system. We're trying to just jam everything just into everybody, but people don't learn the same, people don't have the same interests. Everyone should have some basic educational knowledge, but
foundation,
not everybody wants to go and have 5 master's degrees or, get a doctorate. Some people just, you finish secondary school, you maybe do a certificate, do a diploma, if you want to get a degree, but that's not your goal. Like you said, maybe I want to be a nail tech, maybe I want to get into, cosmetics, maybe I want to get into something outside of the traditional doctor, lawyer, engineer, we've heard it.
You have to change the definition of success. I feel like, for me even, like, I feel like, am I doing what I thought I was going to do when I was in secondary school? No. Am I a doctor, lawyer, engineer? No. But there is always this feeling of failure. Because you're not like
you're not where
because that is what the standard was of what success is. So if it is you're not that, then even if you're good,
are you good
you
enough?
still kind of feel it.
Are you on that level?
Yeah,
Yeah, like that's so true, like what Daniela was saying, because even like maybe the most successful nail tech or a hairdresser, I think if people ask and there's like, you finished school, I'm like, no, I didn't finish school. There's still that negative.
Correct.
They're successful, their house big and large. But, you didn't finish school.
Exactly. Mind you, some of them
So
might be
there's that
making more than you,
negativity.
but you just feel like, your hair doing my nails. Yeah.
So
But also, on top of that too, I think there are some non-educational factors that play into it as well. Like, I can't remember who mentioned it, but things like no water, no light. So it's more than just, get them textbooks, get them this, get them that. But also we need to see what's happening at home. There needs to be a holistic approach, some sort of, maybe counseling, mental health resources, making sure that people have water in their home, safe housing, all the basic necessities that human beings need to survive, so that at least once they're provided for and once their mental is sound, they have a much higher chance or a better ability to succeed at whatever it is that they have to do. Some people might not have water for weeks and months, and some of them don't attend school because of that. You can't wash your uniform, you can't bathe.
And then as soon as you reach school, like, why is shit looking so, like, why is it looking dirty?
and then you get
correct. Why your shoes dirty? But it's like, you don't know what's going on in my house.
But so adding to that as well, I feel like it's important. Well, I mean, each school should have a guidance counselor.
Correct.
Like, the role that your mom serves is extremely important. But outside of that, because that's a single person, and even not all schools are going to have it, but I feel like all teachers should have at some point training every how much ever years on. Not I said teachers have to do a lot more than just teach, right?
Correct.
But they should be equipped with the tools to identify and manage children that are struggling. They at least be able to identify students that likely have other background issues, and then funnel them higher up to then see what resources could be targeted to meet the need. Sometimes I have friends who teach in public school, and they've bought groceries for, which is on a teacher's salary,
right? Exactly.
Not what you're really trying to do,
Yeah.
Because there are gaps in the system. But training teachers to be able to manage, identify, and then also having to now set up a framework that they could be funneled into. Like, once you identify the problem, how do we meet the need without me having to take my little salary to try and, because they have their families too.
But also, as you mentioned earlier, the private sector, because something that schools could do, and maybe not all schools have the ability to, but if the private sector assisted, you could have like a I don't want to phrase this correctly, like a fund separately for things of this nature. So okay, maybe if you notice, a student shoes bust up, can't buy shoes or can't buy books or something like that, the school has some sort of funding available that they're not using for other things for the school. Like, schools always have something to fix, something to paint.
Fix the dust,
but they have that separate committee or funding or whatever for underprivileged students, you know? Yeah. So even things like your friend having to buy groceries, that is there, so that it doesn't go, because we know teachers don't, not all teachers have that privilege
or passion,
right? Or passion, and some people will not want to take that responsibility. So there's something in place. You notice, okay, something is going on, you find out what it is, and that way there's money available that is not coming out of whoever's salary that month or whatever. It's been there, it's staying there, and they just dip into that for the students that need it.
How does a school's non-prestigious status impact the performance of its teachers and students?
You cannot say briefly and then read that question,
Yeah, that's
You
true.
cannot say briefly and read that question.
Brief was one
This is
before.
Yeah.
This is a big one. This is a big one.
That one question could have been the whole talk.
Right.
Oh, fair. Okay.
Take it back to SCA, boy.
I feel like
Can
it
I
starts
get
with, like, what is the
this?
definition of a prestige school?
Exactly.
Right? But I feel like a lot of the prestige schools are denominational schools that I think have access to a funding source outside of the government that keeps funding consistent.
Correct.
Right? And usually, they don't play with the funding, right? The students I don't know whether it's legal or it's supposed to happen or not, but like you have to pay by term money. So they ensure that they have money coming in. And I think that impacts the ability to pay teachers a better wage that would attract more motivated people. I feel like I answered any question the wrong side because I'm focusing on what prestige school doing.
We talk about what's there and then we talk about what's
not there, right? Yeah. So there's the fun, there's that. And then when you attract more motivated teachers, you get better performance in students, you get better passes, you get better results, you get more scholarships, and then you attract more people trying to get in. The higher the competition to get into the school, I guess you get more of the academically inclined students, and then you compound your results. Better passes, better teachers, better funding, better this. And that happening traditionally over years, you end up with your prestige schools.
Correct. So, I mean, there's another side to that too. Because I've heard, I didn't go to prestige school, and I've heard a lot of my friends and a lot of people, they talk about their teachers like they don't really teach. That's why a lot of students in those prestige schools be going all the lessons.
No, I mean,
that's what I've heard. What I heard.
Lessons, but I would not. I had exceptional teachers. All my life, I cannot think of a bad teacher. I wouldn't say the name.
I mean, I probably had like one or two, but
the personalities probably were a little rough around the edges, but they were good teachers, right? Didn't really like them, but they did their job, you know.
I think, I was just going to say, in relation to what Kitty was saying, I think on both ends of the spectrum, so for the prestige and the non-prestige schools, because of the reputation that they have, it kind of becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where it's like, okay, the more academically inclined students will choose to go, will try their best to go to a prestige school because they want to achieve academically, and then the school continues to put out people who achieve academically, and then you have a lot of the time, not always, but with non-prestige schools, you often have students who are not as academically inclined. They might be the people who have goals like being a nail tech, being a plumber, but they have to do the secondary school. So they end up in a non-prestige school, and so they don't perform exceptionally, or they're not the top of the table. So then the school continues to have a reputation of not being a non-prestige school.
But I think it comes down to culture as well. Because a lot of people say you don't have to go to prestige school to do well. And that is absolutely true. Like, if you don't pass a prestige school, it doesn't mean that you're not going to do well. But the thing about being in a prestige school is that you have that culture or that pressure. It might be toxic. It might be toxic, but it exists. And not that in other schools they don't encourage you to do well, but I feel like in prestige schools there's a borderline unhealthy
it's a different
drive,
energy, yes.
Right? So it's a difference in culture. I feel... It comes back to money. It comes back to money and funding to be able to provide the resources. Like a lot of things, I feel like students who see, it's so hard to make definitive statements, but students who see like an effort and resources and stuff being put in place, the majority would feel motivated and be like, this is where I want to work hard towards this, or I want to be a part of this, or they have passionate teachers who, get them involved in different aspects, I think would help with success.
I really think as well as the self-fulfilling prophecy, because students that go a non-prestige school and are aware that I'm not going to, XYZ school. I wouldn't call it names of it, but they feel like people already perceive them this way, and they actually are perceived this way. They get the talks, they see the expressions from other parents when their parents is asked what school your child go in. They see that and they feel that certain way. They internalize that, and that will impact them mentally. So yes, it could be that perception that they know is on them. Because like I was saying before, I didn't go up prestige school, and but what I had to do, I felt that way. But what I had to do, I had to overcome that. I have to go above that. And this is what I want, and it's not what people think about me and my school. And to be honest, I had really great teachers, like amazing teachers that were organized, and they cared about me. And, that is what helped me to rise above that stigma.
I think it really is, like you were saying, very culture-based. And I think it depends on each individual student. And I think the problem comes when you are in an environment and your goals are counter-cultural to what you're in. So a lot of students would like be in a non-prestige school, but again, maybe their family has a business or something, and their goal is not an academic goal, and they'll be fine because that's not their goal. But if you are someone with academic goals in an environment that doesn't support that, then you'll struggle. And even vice versa, there's people who might, like their family might have the resources and want to put them into a prestige school, and their goal is not anything academic related, and they struggle because, you know, they want to do something artistic or creative or something outside of that world, and it's going against the culture. So at the end of the day, it's about, I think, like supporting, like making sure that you have a support system around you for the goals you want to achieve.
Correct.